You're listening to Permission to Shine, the podcast. Stories of overcoming obstacles and finding self-empowerment with Sharice Bisram, Inner Power Activation Leader.
Hey everyone, I'm so excited to introduce a guest that I call a friend, which I'm very grateful to, and another friend that I met in LA, which was again just a whirlwind of an adventure and just really connecting to people. I think that met me where I was at and where I'm growing to. And I think that's a beautiful part of this journey because I think all of the women that were on in that space, we've all been on our own journey since. And I think it was just like the trigger point to like unravel all these beautiful things in our lives. So anyway, that's how I met the wonderful Emma, who is your spiritual reader, and she's going to tell you all about all of those things. So Emma, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for inviting me on. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I feel like it's been something I've been thinking about for a while. And then I mean to ask you, and then we just chat. We just chat about everything under the sun. Even before I press record, we were chatting about how we're like vegetarian slash vegan, and we're just going off about what we ate for breakfast. So I thought, okay, but I knew it needed to happen because you're evolving so much in your spiritual journey and your gifts and all of the things. And I feel like my listeners love this element of the work that I do. So I feel like it's a
Mm.
gift for them to have you dive into what you do. And obviously, the fact that you offer readings and human design stuff and all the things, anyone listening can come and find you and obviously invest in your amazing services. So let's start with, Emma, like your title, what it is you actually do, and then how that even came about.
Yeah. So I'm Emma. I am your spiritual reader, as you said, and I do angel card readings and human design readings. So I'm a medium. I'm clairvoyant. I connect with people that have passed and also people who are sick who are living as well. And I give people messages. I think of myself as a channel, and I basically deliver messages that people need to hear. And the reason I called myself your spiritual reader rather than your spiritual teacher, which I could have done with my background, which we're going to, is because I'm here to connect with people and I'm here to channel and give them the messages that they need. And in terms of human design, I'm here to interpret their design for them and feed it back to them in a way that lands for them. So with human design, it's based on so many things. It's based on Chinese I Ching. It's based on astrology and zodiacs, which I know you love, Charisse, is like your specialty. And it's based on quantum physics as well, and also the chakra systems. And what I love about it is it's got elements of everything, and it comes into one to give you a map of yourself, basically. And it tells you kind of how you show up in this world as authentically you before you have the trauma, before you have kind of everyone else's opinions thrown in or questioning. It's basically how you were meant to be here, what your soul looks like. It gives you that blueprint. And I mean, imagine if you could just have a blueprint to basically tell you how to do life. That's pretty cool.
Absolutely. And I can vouch for this, right? Because Emma did me a reading, and I've had guests on the podcast talk about human design before. So it's something that I know a little bit about or enough about to kind of say, oh, yeah, I'm a manifesting generator or whatever. But when you gave me my reading, it was so detailed and it was really interesting, wasn't it? How you were picking up on things like this would be a good option for you. And I was like, that's really interesting because that's the work that I do now, or that's something I've been doing, or and then you're like, yeah, it makes sense. So it was really nice to kind of see how I'm living very much in alignment to what I should be doing in this world. So I do think for anyone that's feeling like a sense of being lost or not knowing where to go, the human design reading is just so, and Emma is so thorough. Like out of anyone's readings I've ever had,
Ah,
you're so thorough. And little things like, the
thank
one
you.
thing that actually has stuck with me more than anything is that I need to eat in peace. And I'm like, yes, because honestly, from someone that had stomach issues, eating in peace. I'm like, yo, I'm
Yeah.
like, I will find a peaceful space away from chaos,
Yeah.
and I'll eat. Sometimes I eat in the kitchen when I'm on my own, away from
Yeah,
people.
because
Like,
kitchen is your space, like me.
yeah, exactly that. So I'm making a point of really honing in on these points. So I think for
Oh, I
anyone
love that.
listening, like these are such beautiful tools. And I guess I know the human design makes sense in terms of like it's dabbling spirituality, but it's also quite logical. There's also like these little
Hmm.
parts here. So I really want to know more about your journey of how you connect with cards and your like mediumship and all of those things. Like I would love to hear your journey on how that came about.
Yeah. So for me, I've just always grown up really with a bit of a spiritual family. Like for most people, it's not really the norm, but for me, like, I'd go around my nan's and she'd be like, "Give us your ring." And she, we'd give her the ring and she would channel and she would kind of connect with people who had passed. She would tell us things about stuff that had happened that not everyone knew about. She would talk about things that were going to happen um, because she's clairvoyant as well. And it would just kind of come to her like a download. And that was just kind of normal for my family. Christmas, you go around there, you give Nan your ring. Like that was just kind of the way it went. And then my Nan on my other side, on my dad's side of the family, she could hear spirits. She was clairaudient. And I remember a particular memory actually of when we were at church because my dad's family are Irish Catholic, so faith is very much embedded in that side of the family. And we were in church and we were praying by a statue of Mary, Our Lady, and there was a mum with a daughter in front of us on the bench. And my nan just said, "Oh, that lady has a flower and she wants to give it to Our Lady, but she's too worried to give it to her." And I was like, okay, like this lady hadn't spoken to us. I didn't even see the flower. I wasn't really sure what was going on. And my nan went up to her and spoke to the lady, and the lady pulled out the flower and said, "Oh, thank you so much. I was worried about doing that." And she went up and gave the flower. And I just thought, how did she know that? But these kind of things would just happen all the time. And I remember when I was a little girl, I'd feel energy. I could feel spirit. Not see it or hear it, but I could feel it. And I remember there was a particular presence actually in one of the houses we lived in, and it wasn't a very nice energy. And at that point, I didn't know how to protect myself. I didn't know how to kind of block or, close down or anything like that. And I remember my brother and my dad also felt this particular energy, and it scared me. And I think that blocked me from that point. So then I'd still, grow up around my nan and stuff, and she would do the channeling, but I was kind of blocked at that point. And then I went into teaching and I loved being a teacher, but it was also a really stressful job. And I felt like I just didn't have any mental space for kind of anything else. So that kind of spiritual side to my life just didn't really have a chance to come in. Then when I was 28, I was at work one day and I got a phone call from my brother to say that mum was in hospital. And I knew straight away that it was mum, and I knew what had happened, and I knew that she was gone. Um, and we went there, and it took a couple of days for them to tell us what we already knew. Because if you've ever seen somebody that's passed, you can tell when the soul has left the body for sure. Um, and yeah, they told us that she'd died. She'd had a brain hemorrhage, and she'd had a brain hemorrhage actually 10 years prior. I was at home and she'd fainted at the gym, came home and was suffering really bad symptoms, and I had to call the ambulance. But anyway, at this point, she'd passed away. And I remember it was the day before the night before the funeral, and I was really struggling to sleep. And I had to do a reading for the funeral, and I wanted it to go really well. And it was me and my brother's reading, and I wanted to kind of be the strong one and kind of, you know, do it properly and respect her and honor her in a proper way. And so that then if I did it, they felt they could do their reading. So I put a lot of unnecessary pressure on myself, really. You're shaking your head like, yeah, yeah. I can see it all. And yeah, and I remember that evening, I was like, oh, I just need to go to sleep. Mum, can you help me to go to sleep? I just want to sleep. And my partner, Jamie, was lying next to me. He was already asleep. I was like, please, please let me go to sleep. And I remember hearing footsteps from the hallway outside, and the footsteps walked across into my bedroom, across to the other side of my bed, and then I woke up and it was the morning. And I know that that was my mum, and I could feel her energy, and I know that she was helping me. And from that moment on, I would feel her more and more. And it kind of opened me up again psychically. And I felt other energy in the house. And so then I did some spiritual awareness courses and I tapped back in. But again, kind of teaching got in the way a little bit. So I'd opened the door, but I couldn't fully step through it because I had all this kind of mental stress going on with teaching. Then what happened was my partner and I bought a property. It happened just before COVID. We renovated this property and we sold it and made a good profit on it. And we were like, okay, well, now's the time, if any, where we've got the opportunity to step out of our full-time jobs and go into property and pursue other things. And I think what that did was it gave me, first of all, the mental space to free up some room in my mind, and also to kind of give me permission to pivot in a different direction. And the spiritual stuff came back in. And then what happened was I kind of went through a bit of an identity crisis because I'd been a teacher for such a long time. Imposter syndrome set in. And I was like, and I was going through another grief because I was also leaving teaching, which is a grief in itself. And then throughout that time, we lost two other people who we were very close to as well. So there was a lot of grief going on, a lot of shame and blame, a lot of imposter syndrome. And then I didn't realize that I needed it, but that's where human design came in, because my friend introduced it to me and told me that I was a manifester and told me all about my details. And when I heard about my human design, I honestly cried because I felt so much relief, because it was like somebody had given me the permission to say, do you know what? You are a great teacher, but it's not for you. The whole system is not designed for you, and it's okay for you to step away from it. And actually, you should. And in doing that, it's opened a door for me to still kind of teach in a way and help people, but in a different way, which is where your spiritual reader came in, because I wanted something where I could still connect with people, could still help people, but I wasn't sure how to do it. That wasn't in the teaching structure. And this is where human design and the angel cards have come in for me. It's given me another structure to live my life theme, which is effectively, I am here to process big bits of information, digest it, break it down, and present it to people in a way that lands for them. That is my life theme and that is my gift. So effectively, that's what I'm doing.
Yes, I love all of that so much. And I wanted you to go through the whole journey because I think what's beautiful about your story is that everything's on purpose, and it's like all of us, I think so many people get caught up in the feeling stuck when it doesn't work, or they're latching onto something when it needs to break or change. And I think that, the way you've told us your story, it's like through every obstacle that came along, there was always that golden thread that led you to the next part of your journey. And actually, I believe that everything you are now is almost the reclamation of all of the parts of yourself you silenced for so long. So like now you're standing in your power because you're saying, I'm not going to hide, not going to make myself small. I'm not going to dilute myself anymore. I'm going to take back all of the things that I've kind of allowed to be an obstacle to not be. And it's really funny when you said about me nodding when you said, oh, I wanted to be the strong one. I want to be, because obviously I've also done that myself, but I know you and I know that that's something you
I
do. So
know.
I'm like,
And
of
I didn't
course.
have a Charisse then. So now I can hear you in my ear. I know exactly what you'd say.
Oh, thank you. No, but it is true. And I think, a lot of the women that I connect with, we've all been on our own version of this, right? Our own version of being the
Mm.
strong one, feeling like we have to have it all together, protecting people. And that's all us being in our masculine. So now, like for me, I feel like your spiritual gifts are such your feminine, right? And I even believe when you're teaching, you're probably in your feminine when you're delivering. But even when
Mm.
you said your story from your mum, I got so welled up because I could just feel the truth in it, like, and I think that for me now is my indicator. Like I suppressed my emotions for so long. So now when I allow myself to go on the journey with people and it does make me emotional, I'm like, that's so beautiful. One, that I'm allowing myself to be open in that way, but two, to feel how it would have felt at that time. And I myself had little moments of that when my relatives were passing and things like that would happen, and I would try and make sense of it logically, and then a part of me just stopped and was like, this is another level, another dimension to the universe that we do not know about. And I think
Mm-hmm.
from that point there, especially when you lose a parent, but anyone that you're close to, that knowing that there's more than just this human reality is just the most refreshing thing. I don't know if you felt the same way, that like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, there's a beyond. And I guess for you would have had these inklings of this connection to the divine because of your family, which is so beautiful. And I actually think my family had a little dabbling of it, but it wasn't on the forefront. It wasn't as kind of obvious as it was in your household. But because I'm talking about it more now, my family are asking me. And when my intuition kicks in and I'm like, guys, don't do that, they listen. They're like, oh, yeah, yeah, Cherise said not to do it, so we're not going to do it. And I'm like, wow, like, how did that go
Love
full
it.
circle? Yeah, from me being this dancer that was so masculine to now being like, the energy isn't right, guys. And they're like, Cherise said the energy isn't right, so we're not doing it. And I said something the other day about like a family trip, and basically an older relative wanted to go on this family trip, and I just had this like bad feeling about it. I was like, it's not good. I was like,
Yeah.
the only way she's allowed to go on that trip in my eyes is if this other relative goes with her. They were standing
Mm.
in my house the other day having that conversation, and I went, what did you just say? And he said, oh, I'm gonna go on the trip with her. And I literally just like felt this like tingle from my body, and I went, he went, what's just happened? I went, I literally knew that this was going to happen. And I told him, he went, oh my God, I can feel it too. So like, even like my family can feel these things. And I love that you said about,
Yeah.
because I know your dad has spiritual gifts anyway,
Yeah,
but the fact
yeah.
your
So
brother could feel
again, that
it.
happened. Yeah, that happened again. Like he was already spiritually connected, but again, after mum died is when he tapped back into it as
Nice.
well. And he does angel card reading, and he's also a Reiki healer as well.
And then what about your brother? Because you said your brother also felt that energy in the space. Has he ever dived
Yeah.
back in?
No, not really. I think again, like there's a bit of fear around
Mm.
it. But he's always, keen to know what I have to say. And I've done a human design readings for both my brothers, and and both their partners, and it's really interesting actually to see. And what I found particularly interesting is all three of us have a 3 in our profile line, which is the
Ah.
personality profile. And the traits of a 3 are people who are very resilient, because they have to be, because they go through a lot of trial and error in their life. Um, and they are risk takers, and they kind of like to go against the grain. And it's really interesting because in my aspect of my life, I've kind of gone against the grain in terms of my career. My brother's done it in terms of his relationship, and then my other brother has, I mean, he's just kind of off the charts. He'd go somewhere and live there for a bit, then he'd go somewhere else, you know. So it's really interesting. Obviously we've all been through grief as well, so it's amazing how it comes up. And then for you again, it makes so much sense because both you and I have a 5 in our profile, and people who have a 5 are natural problem solvers. They want to solve challenges, and they can kind of do outside the box thinking, but also they naturally want to help people. So, you know, when a five says something, people do listen, especially with you because you've got the one as well. So you're somebody that, you know, will go down a wormhole in terms of investigating things and finding things out because you love knowledge. So when you say something, people know, well, that must be legit because Charisse does her knowledge, she does her research, you know.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And I feel like I'm noticing that more as well. Since you obviously highlighted all of that in more detail for me, I'm noticing that, like I said, I'll just now go into family spaces and everyone listens. And like that's never really been my reality. I used to have to like shout to be heard. And now I just
Yeah.
kind of wander in and people are like, oh, so what do you think about it? And I'm like, oh, okay. And then I'll just turn around and everyone's stopping and staring at me. And I'm like, oh. And even like when I deliver things now, I feel like, especially with the teenagers, like we've said before, the
Yeah.
teachers can't get over the fact that the teenagers just stop what they're doing and listen to me. They can't get
Mm.
over it. That how are you doing that? And I think that that is part of my human design and also like an energy thing. I just think that I'm so embedded in who I am as a person, that deep sense of self-worth, that that's what makes me magnetic is that. And obviously you said to me before that that is part of my human design as well, isn't it? Something about
Yeah,
being
it's one of
magnetic.
your channels. Yeah.
There we go. See, this is why you need a reading, guys, because it helps you to make sense. And as you know, from me being a one, I love knowledge. I like to know things.
Yeah.
So for me, I felt like the way that you broke human design down made it make sense and gave me again these little details of things that I kind of may have known around or I could sense that was the right thing, but just even more detail there. So I love all of that. But I guess for me, I would love to know like what you think about someone that's listening that maybe I've done this as well with another guest that spoke about her spiritual gifts, but I feel like it's always nice to hear different versions of this. Someone that's listening that maybe is logical and is in a job where it's like a 9 to 5 or that you've built up a successful business and you're trying to tap more into this spirituality because you know it's there in the background, but you don't really know where to start. Because you've done this journey, what would you kind of recommend to that woman?
I think initially it's so interesting, isn't it? Because we always try and think and work things out very much in our heads and in our minds, and we try and out logic everything. But what we always come back to is actually inherently we know things and we're able to feel things. And that's why in human design, everyone's authority is not to do with the mind, it's to do with their body. So the way that we make decisions is about your emotions or your splenic authority or your sacral authority, and it's about, you know, gut or instinct or some people are soundboarding, so they have to like talk out their ideas, not necessarily to get people's opinions but just to speak them out loud because then they
Mm.
hear it back to themselves better. So I think inherently we know kind of a lot of what we need to know. So I think in terms of kind of tapping back into that, just kind of allowing yourself to kind of go with your instincts a little bit more and to go with your feelings. And I think journaling is a great way to do this and meditation. So starting maybe with meditating and then just journaling what comes up for you, and beginning that way just to kind of open up a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And that's obviously things I talk about all the time, right? Is the journaling and the meditation. And I think so many people are aware of what they need to do, but they're so scared to do it, aren't they? Because they're worried about what
Yeah.
comes forward. And it reminds me of that story about your nan with the flower. It's like,
Yeah.
that woman was ready to do her flower, but she was so afraid to do it. And thankfully, your nan was a guide to her then and said, "Hey, look, come and do this." And I think that that's essentially what we're doing in this lifetime, right? Is saying to the people that are sitting there, like, "Oh my gosh, I've got this flower. I don't know what to do. I really want to put it there." Saying to them, "Hey, come on, I'll take you to put your flower down," you know?
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, that feels like I guess for me, and you'll have your own version of this, and I'd love to hear what you say in this. It's like for me, I feel like everything I do is reconnecting people back with their inner power that they have within them that's always been there, right? And I'd love to know kind of what your version of that is in your words that you do, because it's the same thing, just in a different way, right?
100%. And this is what I love about human design because the way that it works is it works off of your time of birth, date of birth, and place of birth. And it's all about what the energy of the sun and the planets, the position of the planets were doing at that time, and also 3 months before that time. And there's something called neutrinos. I'm going to get into the sciencey bit now, Sharice. You're going to love it. There's something called neutrinos, which are particles, and they're tiny, and they are interacting with us all the time, and interacting with, everywhere. And what neutrinos can do is they can go through mass, and they can collect energy. And effectively, what they were doing is they collect the energy from the sun and the position of the planets, and they bring that to the specific place that you are when you are born. And that's the energy that makes up your human design blueprint. So what it's doing is it's telling you who you are to your core, your raw sense of self, before everything else kind of came in, before society's influence and everything else. So what I love about it is it's about you being stripped back to yourself. And what I love about doing the readings is whenever I read for someone, it's like they say to me, Emma, it's like you have looked into my soul. And they say, do you know what? This is stuff that I've known about myself, but it's like it's come to the surface. It's like you've given me the permission to actually go there and to think this about myself, or to say this about myself, because it's like it's always there, but it's just being actually presented to them and confirmed to them.
Yeah, I love that so much. And I love the connection to everything, because for me everything's energy. So when you're talking about like the neutrinos from a scientific perspective, I'm visually seeing how that energy is just holding space for you until you're born, and then you kind of fly into it and you absorb it, and it's like, hey, this is me. But also on another note, laughing to myself that I was always supposed to be the challenge solver. So even before I adopted the human trauma, my soul was
Yeah.
like, hey, you're here to be a warrior, absorb it, love that, thanks. But this is something that I've known for myself just anyway, that my soul has had these lineage of like absorbing this information, learning, growing, being a warrior through that. And then I feel like my human self, in the generational things that I've adopted and been through, also have seen that same pattern. So it's almost like my soul self and my human self, I feel like have met an equilibrium in this lifetime through me saying I'm doing things differently now, and or owning those parts that people have been trying to suppress, through generations in my family and beyond. And that's not a, put down to anyone else. It's just that trauma is obviously repeated over and over again until someone faces it, right? And I feel like this is what I'm here to do. And obviously through my human design, that's very much a fact. So
Yeah,
yeah.
100%. And I love talking about past lives and stuff like that. And I 100% believe that, our souls chose this lifetime for a
Mm,
reason. They chose the way to present. And even within our human design, the life themes, like we spoke about this, about how um your life theme now, it connects to kind of what your previous life themes would have been, and what may have came up in your previous lifetimes for you to choose this life now and this life theme. And I read something really interesting about my own life theme for myself. It said basically about how in a past life I may have been fighting a cause, for example, and I would have been shut down.
mm,
And that was really interesting for me, because I've been told about my past lives, and I've been told that I've been a spiritualist writer, but it had to all be hush hush. I've been told that I was working in pyramids in Egypt with energy and chakra points, and again, that had to be hush hush. So this lifetime, I feel like this is where I can present the spiritual side and it not be quiet. But also, there's been times in my teaching career where I've also been put down, and that's been triggering for me, and that's made me really angry. And as a manifester, that's my not self theme, anger. And so I realized that the reason why it's so triggering is because there may be some past life trauma related to that. And so this lifetime is about clearing that up and coming, this is like, no, I'm going to do this now.
I love that so much. You've taken me on that journey. I was like, yes, I love it all. And this is the thing, I've always said this, that when people describe things to me, I see it. So I'm actually just fully with you in that journey, like going, seeing the pyramids, all of the things. But I actually feel like I've known that for you in this life anyway. And I think that when I first met you, you were quieter and like inside yourself more. And I feel like I've been able to watch over this last year you evolve and open and bloom, and it's been really lovely to watch. And I think that that's really the beauty of this work that we both do in our own way, and also really embracing your life as it comes. And I think, like I said, so many people are running away from their calling, their gifts, their things, or hiding from it. And I think what's been like wonderful to hear is that, like, you've embraced every step as it's come through. And I guarantee that that would have been very difficult, but like obviously the podcast is called Permission to Shine. So in all of what you've been through and all of the cycles that you've learned and you've kind of gone through, when do you think that moment was that you really fully gave yourself that permission to shine?
It was definitely that retreat for sure that we went on in LA. Yeah, 100%. Because it was so interesting because I'd gone to a property networking event, and Rebecca, who we were on the retreat with, um, she'd given a gift, a gold ticket to somebody and placed it under somebody's chair. And the idea was whoever got the ticket went on the retreat to LA. Anyway, I remember her saying about it, and everyone was to check under their seats. And I'd never won anything in my life, Charisse, but I just knew that that ticket was under my chair. I couldn't explain it. I just knew it was there. And I kind of paused for a moment and I let everybody else check their chair. And it was funny as well because I was also sat next to Rebecca, but she had no dealing in the ticket. She literally gave the ticket to one of the people that were just like one of the events people. And she said, don't tell me where it's going, just put it under someone's chair. And they did it when no one else was in the room. Anyway, everyone else looked under their chair and no one had found it. And I thought, I just know it's under there. And then I looked under mine and lo and behold, it was there. And I was kind of met with this like shock, but also like I knew. And so I believe 100% that I was meant to be in LA with you guys. I was meant to be at that retreat, but initially when I won the ticket, I obviously your spiritual reader didn't exist, and I thought I was going for Oaks Hill Property, which is my property investment my
If this
property
episode
company name.
resonated with you,
So I thought it
please
was
do
going to be for
like,
building
follow,
that.
and share with
But
someone
then
that you
when
know would benefit.
there were
If you're
kind of
looking to
moments
dive in
before I got
deeper
there
to becoming your most
where
unapologetic, most
I had my
authentic,
human design read
shining
and all these other
self,
things.
please do
And I
head to
thought,
my
no,
website and
I
join
don't
my
think I'm meant to
newsletter
be
where
here
you'll
for
find
that.
out about all
And
of my
then when I
upcoming
got
events
to
and speaking
LA, and
opportunities and all of the
you
things that I
guys
have
were like
going
so
on. And
spiritual.
also, if you would like
And
to
it was
work
just
with
so
me,
interesting
please
because it
do
just
drop me a
confirmed it
DM
for
on
me. I
any
was
of my
like, oh, well, there we
socials
go. That
or
is
through
exactly
my
why I'm
website.
here. And
Love
I
and
talked
light.
about my business plan, and I remember doing the photo shoot with lovely Lola. And Rebecca was like, Emma, go get your angel cards out. And I was like, oh, yeah, of course. And I started doing angel card readings for people just off the back. And then it all just kind of came flooding in. And then it's just mad, actually, how in the last few months, like this started really. The retreat was in September. I started doing readings for people in like October, November. And now like, I'm at a place where like this is actually a business, and I've read for, over 30 people, and I've been asked to do webinars and podcasts and all sorts. And it's just I feel very grateful and very, very happy. And I do feel like this is like a peaceful moment for me. And that's how I know that I'm in the right place, because my signature theme as a manifestor is peace.
Yeah, love that so much. And I think that, that in itself, your owning of your story, your gifts, and it being easy when you open that door to it and how things flows, I think that that in itself is like such a beautiful spotlight that I think everyone needs to look at in their own life. It's like, where am I being called to lean into, and where can I open
Mm.
up fully and allow myself to like completely dive into that? And what's really funny about the retreat is that I only booked my flight literally the first week of September. So I was literally not going to the retreat up until September, and then we went at the end of September. So I feel like the dynamic of that retreat completely shifted to what it was supposed to be, to what it became. I think it was
Yeah.
supposed to be really businessy and like, you know, talking
Yeah.
about numbers and like generating more wealth, because it was obviously the Wealthy Women CEO retreat. And it ended up being about soul growth and like what is our soul leading us to be. And I definitely feel like us being in their room, like that group of women, it was definitely curated because of that, you know, and we were able to shift and align. And I think that's the beautiful thing about being with a great facilitator like Rebecca. She just steered it in the way that it was
100%.
already leaning. And I think that was so
Yeah.
beautiful, because even like Athena, who isn't
I know,
very
I was going to
spiritual.
say, it's really funny because Athena's so logical, and even she came away from that, you know, tapping into the spiritual. So I think that was so amazing.
Yeah, and just a reminder for everyone else again, like if you feel like spirituality isn't your thing, but you're leaning in, keep leaning in, because you know these are the
Yeah.
things, like these women that wouldn't have ever exposed themselves to a spiritual version of whatever we're doing. They're like now, like, oh, it feels off. Oh, I don't know about that. Or I'll get a message from Athena saying, what is the sun doing? What is the stars doing? Because this is
Yeah,
happening, you
yeah.
know. So then I think that yes, it's that, right? And this for us
She's on the
as
woo-woo bus now.
absolutely. And I think as women, this is that again, reclaiming of something that is ancestral inside of us, like it's ancestral through generations, that women gathered in circles, connected to the moon, all of those things. So, yes, whether you're that woo woo and you want to join me in a field barefoot staring at the moon, or if you are building
Which
your
we did
business.
do.
Absolutely, around the fire. Or if you are building your business and you are thinking that I'm doing too much and I don't know where to go now, this is your opportunity to lean into your feminine energy and connect fully into that space. So I hope that, I mean, today was more of a conversation than it was my normal structure, but I feel like it was a real great example of how listening to yourself and your gifts and your instincts guide you to where you're supposed to be. And I do really urge you all to lean into like reaching out to Emma, because for me, spiritual practices have been such a big part of like my own journey and like how I understand myself. You know, like when I'm feeling a bit off or I can't explain what's happening, I'll pull a card, you know, like for myself.
Mm.
So I think if you're someone that doesn't have cards of your own or doesn't know how to connect yet, or you want to, or any of those things, or even if you don't want to do it yourself, you just want to connect with someone that does, reach out to Emma, because yeah, she's amazing. She does a free card pull on a Monday at 6 p.m, which
I
I do
do, yeah.
always try and join. And yeah, tell us a little bit more about the offers that you have at the moment. So if anyone wants to reach out, they can just do so, and then where to
Yeah,
find you.
sure. So at the moment I've got, in terms of angel card reading, I offer a half-hour angel card reading. We pull 9 cards. I usually get the client to pull 6 and then I choose 3. And then we turn them over, we talk about what they mean. But when I do a reading, I don't just read what's on the card. To be honest, I don't look at the words. I'm channeling. So
Mm.
I'm literally getting messages come in as I turn over the card. And I say to people, you know, before we pick the cards, you can either think about a particular question or a topic that you want, or you can just go with what the cards are telling you, because most of the time that's usually what's meant to be anyway. I remember more recently I had a reading with someone, and I said, oh, is there something particularly you want to know? And before she had a chance to say, the relationship card flew out of the deck, and she was like, that's literally what I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, spirit knows, the
I
cards
was going to
know.
say, Spirit likes to play jokes too, by the way, guys, when you dive in, just saying.
And then obviously I offer human design readings as well. So I do that in a few different capacities. It can be a kind of personal one-to-one one. It can be a couples one. I also do them for a business one as well, which kind of takes your personal blueprint, but also shows you kind of the best way for you to kind of manage your social media, your manifesting money, and your business growth strategy. So based on your human design. And really for me, I think the whole point of this, connecting with this spiritual stuff, like you say, is so that ultimately you're building a sustainable business for you. because the whole point is, if your business does not align with you and your design, then it's not going to be sustainable. It's going to be easily broken down, and it's not going to be achievable, and you're not going to build something that you feel fully passionate or at peace with. And so that's why I think it's just so important to have these readings done, and also to connect with people like yourself, Charisse, where you're doing all this, trauma healing, because ultimately, if you're a business owner, your business is coming from you. You are the person that it's coming from. So if you're not, healed, or if you're not in a space where you really understand yourself, then your business is not going to be able to grow properly or authentically.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I think it's again coming down to these tools and practices that just are, beyond what we know as humans, right? It's connecting beyond what we can see. And yeah, just and I guess it's like it's going in to come out, right? Like that's what essentially we're saying, is understand ourselves on a deeper level so that
Oh God,
then
and
we
haven't we
can
done
build.
that in these retrogrades?
Right.
Me
Right.
and you have been
Oh my
DMing each
gosh.
other like, oh my
Yeah.
God.
So, and this is the thing, right? What I say with astrology is always an invitation to dive in and see where the gaps are, where the cracks are, and actually, just a reminder of that is that you need to break open so the light can get in or out. And I think that's exactly kind of what we've been speaking about today, which I think is so important. But yes, as I said, anyone listening, please go over to Emma's page. I'll tag it in the description below. Follow her, watch your live card readings, and reach out for an external reading if you feel like you're called to. And it might not be now, it might be in a year's time. You're like, right, I'm ready for that angel card reading now. And you might decide to do it then. But either way, as most people know that listen, spirituality has played a massive part in my life, in my healing journey, in my growth as a woman, a mentor, a business owner, but as a human and a soul, So I think that more than anything, this is like a real gift that we have access to, that it would be criminal to not dive into. So thank you
What have you
so
got
much.
to lose? What have you got to lose?
Exactly. Yeah. And thank you
You
so
know,
much for joining me, Emma, because I feel like yeah, it's been something that I wanted to get you on and talk about for a really long time. So to end the podcast,
thank
I
you.
always do a little soul to soul message, and I want you to just, I can say
Ooh.
the word channel to you because you understand that. I don't always say channel to all the other guests, but I'm going to say it to you. You can just channel what you feel like needs to be said for someone listening, or what you feel like you need to say.
Don't be afraid to show up as you authentically are, because you never know who you're going to impact in a positive way and what opportunities it could lead to.
Yes. That with bells on. That's exactly what we've both done in our own lives. And I feel like this has been the theme of the episode. So thank you to your guides for sharing that with us. Because I feel like that needed to be said. I feel like I got too excited at the end. So I'm really sorry if anyone leaned in and was like really quietly listening. And I was like, yes, that is it. But yeah, thank you so much.
To me.
Yeah, no, it was beautiful, and it exactly articulated the theme of this episode. So yes, thank you so much, and everyone, thank you for listening. Again, everything's going to be in the show notes, so you can tap into it there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Charisse. I love you.
Love you too.
I love what you're doing.
If this episode resonated with you, please do like, share, and send to someone you know that would benefit. If what I've said in this episode resonates with you, please don't hesitate to drop me a message so we can begin your journey of self-empowerment through self-discovery. My process is simple. Understand what happened to you so you can accept it. From there, you can release what no longer serves you, and then we begin to rebuild your self-worth, your self-esteem, and your self-trust to ultimately ensure that you become the version of yourself that you were destined to be. Time to give yourself the permission to shine.